Moreton Bay, 1824. A penal colony was established to punish secondary offenders. They were the convicts who had re-offended while serving their sentence of transportation to Australia. Penal colonies were run by the Army, and a military commissariat procured, supplied and distributed all essential goods: food, tools, building materials, weapons, clothing and uniforms.
Let's welcome our next In the Dark guest, the fell tyrant himself, Captain and Commandant Patrick Logan. Good morning, Captain.
Good morning.
You are Captain Patrick Logan of His Majesty's 57th Regiment of Foot?
I'm indeed, madam.
And you died on the 18th of November in 1830 during a surveying expedition, sir?
That is correct, madam. I was in the midst of mapping a creek area west of the outpost at Limestone Hills, near the new township of Ipswich.
Who accompanied you on this expedition?
My Batman and 5 convicts that had earned the right to be called trusted.
Did you make it to the creek safely?
No. Our small party was attacked on 2 occasions by a handful of the local Aboriginal tribe, but we were able to fight off their advances and make our way unimpeded to the outpost successfully.
In that case, how and where were you killed?
Despite the obvious danger and the suggestions from within my party, I set off alone on the 17th of November, 1830. I was attacked and violently bludgeoned to death as I slept.
By the same tribe of Aboriginals that attracted you to the outpost?
Well, madam, that, as they say, is the question. Some say it was in fact one of the trusted convicts that did the deed and merely shed the blame of the crime back upon the original tribesmen to avoid death.
Your ghost has been seen riding, Captain, on the south bank of Brisbane at the Tower Mill and near your shallow grave at the head of the Logan Creek. Why haven't you moved on to the next world?
I created this colony. It belongs to me. Why would I leave?
Your uniform now resides at the National Army Museum in London. Are you proud that your military legacy and deeds have continued to be told?
I was a formidable man and leader in life. It is hardly surprising that in death I grow even more infamous.
Thank you for your time, Captain. So we're talking Expo 88?
Expo 88, good memories there, yeah.
So apart from the ploughing, did you ever do the beer?
We did the beer fest, we did the German pavilion, we did lots of pavilions. So sometimes it was just a Friday afternoon going into Friday night, other times it was the weekends. Anytime we had a season pass, so yes, friends, family, gatherings, it was wonderful at Expo 88.
I spent a lot of time in Expo, so yeah, Munich Fest House was really good.
Some of my experience at World Expo, having the contract to do the hair for the different events, at the River Stage and at the concert hall. I can remember a Royal Command performance that with many stars,
Wow.
John Denver, Donny Osmond, look, the list was enormous. But I can remember Donny Osmond coming straight from his room at the Crest Hotel, immaculately dressed in Carnaby leather, not a hair out of place, and I was determined to do his hair. And I said, you can't go on with hair like that. So I just grabbed a water spray and just basically combed it exactly the same way, and he was just over the moon and thought I was a miracle worker. But I remember that was one pretty funny experience. John Denver arriving backstage, running late with wet hair, and they were literally calling him onto the stage when he was with me in the hair section. And we both looked at each other, panicked, and he said, quick, hand me a can of hairspray. And we ran together across the backstage area, and he passed me the hairspray after dousing himself. And then it was like a baton relay where he passed the hairspray back to me. And he then walked out on stage just as a gust of wind on the river stage blew one side of his hair up. And if anyone knows what wet hair and hairspray do, his hair, he looked like he was out of that group, the Flock of Seagulls. And one side of his hair was permanently blown up through the whole performance. That was, I'll never forget that. We had some world-class dancers doing a Spanish flamenco, and this event was being telecast on Channel 7 live, and I hadn't pinned in a large rosette into the hair as firmly as I would have liked. And I can remember this dancer spinning towards the television camera, and the rosette just kept going and went straight into the lens. That was horrifying, working with Dame Edna, doing the hair, doing the wigs for Barry Humphries and creating the Celeste character, and yeah, Edna was bigger than life, yeah.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We had something. We were over from UK at 88, and we went to Expo a few times. So I remember that. That was quite, obviously I was still getting to know Brisbane at the time, so it was just this huge thing. But of course, when you're visiting Brisbane during the middle of Expo, you don't really know what normal Brisbane is. It's just bedlam, and all these people going about, you think, oh, this is what Brisbane's ordinarily like. Never heard of what Expo was before then. So apparently they just party in the park continuously, day after day, for months on end. I mean, that was always something to do in Brisbane. Apparently that's how it was. So so that was that. I thought that was normal.
I do like walking just next to the river, the swimming pools, just because I always used to swim there as a kid.
Yes, you liked the Ferris wheel, didn't you?
Yes,
the Eye
I
of
did.
Brisbane.
I
Yes.
did. Oh, I didn't. What's called the Eye of Brisbane?
Yes,
That's right.
yes.
A day out in Brizzy is wonderful when we've got the fresh sunshine and the parkland of South Bank. Yep, love it.
It was developed just before we had our first child, and then when the second one came along, it's a brilliant place to take children into the parklands, swimming at the lagoon, pool and the beach there, and then having ice cream afterwards. It was always a great time with the kids and the family.
It would be my number one spot. I absolutely adore South Bank Parklands, and an ideal day for me would be going to the, I think it's called the Ship Inn.
That's the one at the top end?
Yes, I believe so. So just going there, chilling out, listening to the live music, surrounded by the markets. So yes, that would be something that I absolutely love doing.
I like walking along the river, and I quite often do that when I work in town on my lunch hour. And it's just beautiful to get out of the office and to walk along the river and the sun shining, and it's beautiful.
Brisbane today, 2009, looks to be a very modern, progressive city, lots of high-rise buildings, plenty of steel, glass, skyscrapers, and in a sense, too much of its colonial heritage has been lost. The one that I particularly lament is the Bellevue Hotel. It's very important in heritage terms because as a result of the demolition of that hotel, which really was a beautiful facade in that New Orleans style, and now it's a rather dull little park. But because there was a lot of protest, especially about the way the government had more or less deliberately allowed this building to deteriorate through the 1970s, and then in the stealth of the night have it knocked down, this did create a lot of angst, a lot of energy, and a lot of protest. And out of that, in the 1980s, we then begin to get important heritage legislation, so that nowadays it is much more difficult to knock down a heritage building.
Probably just going there with picnics from when I was young and little, go there with a whole bunch of friends, and we all just climb the tree and all the parklands around and play soccer and cricket and that kind of thing.
Well, I've got a couple. It was the place I went on my first date, and then later, a year later, for my first anniversary.
There's a historic house up there I did a tour of once. That was really interesting. The history of the place is just something you don't see driving past, and yeah.
There was this circular thing that you would spin around, and you just try and jump on, and you were just trying to hold on because you were just going, there was someone spinning it, and it would just, spinning around and holding on for dear life.
I love the markets at New Farm Park. I love walking through the gardens there with the roses. That would have to be my favourite. But we've also had a lot of family parties, get-togethers. So I really do treasure those memories.
For me, I mean, we've had lots of family events over the years, but a really memorable one was my parents were married on the 1st of October 1960. In 1985 they celebrated their 25-year anniversary, and for that my brother and I went to New Farm Park, and he had a friend who was a professional photographer, and we went all around the park, down to the river, to the big trees, the playground areas, and she took photos of my brother and I, and we compiled a beautiful silver album for their silver wedding anniversary.
Looking at the rose gardens with my beautiful mother-in-law Jean, who is no longer with us. And that's something we always did. We always walked, looked at the roses, we also had our children there, had family picnics, but for me the most special thing was sharing the love of roses with my mother-in-law.
The $5 pizza slices you get after a night out are pretty great.
Well, I really enjoy clubbing, but I think the thing that I enjoy most in the valley is the kebab shops. Frequent them a lot.
Could you share that with us?
Yes. My then wife took us for a night out, and she thought the valley was a nice spot to visit. We ended up at the Wickham Hotel, and for a country boy like me, that was, let's say, confrontational. Anyway, I had the misfortune of needing to go to the loo, and that's the quickest toilet trip I think I've ever had. Couldn't get out of the place fast enough.
Being a door bitch at the Terminus gay bar, and that was pretty big, and that was very early 80s. So that was, I finished school in 1980, and I was on the door 81, 82. The drag shows, you know, there were, and that was when the gay scene was, it was really raw, and back then there was Zulus, the Zoo, the Terminus, the Beat, the Alliance Hotel up in Spring Hill. So we had a number of different places we could go to.
In the 80s, the valley was gambling, illegal gambling houses, it was brothels.
See, it was Chinatown to me. It was,
That opened in 1987.
Yeah.
It would have been.
None. I'd never go to the valley in the 80s. It was basically that was where all the druggies hung out. It wasn't a regulated nightclub precinct like it is now, where it was controlled and at least a lot safer like it is now. It was an area of the city that you didn't really go into.
I remember it being a very dark place, somewhere that I was warned by a friend not to go to. So I remember it as being very seedy, very, it was really a drug haven, and also prostitute haven. There was lots of brothels and so forth, and police corruption. So that's something, so I did avoid that particular area in Brisbane.
Oh, earthy, gritty, kind of dark. And I remember going past once at the Valley Fiveways. There was a building there which I think it had a balcony on it at the time, which is no longer there. I think they've kept the facade and they've redeveloped it as they've done now. But this balcony there with girls all hanging around, obviously, you know, soliciting for more customers, and just thinking, wow, what's this place? What on earth is this in the? Oh, okay, that's strange. Yeah. So and just having all the just lights and busy and just bit of scariness.
Probably the most seedy place of town, and more so for its brothels.
Chris Hemsworth and Tina Fey. The first two, nice and hot, get some good photos together. And Tina Fey's a comedian, so she'd be pretty funny.
Clubbing is quite different to who you'd sit down and have a talk with. It's more, expect them to be a bit more lively. So I'd have probably, I'd have Post Malone, definitely. He's just a chill kind of guy who would be really fun to hang around. I'd have I think I'd have Kurt Cobain as well, and probably that's tough. I'd probably go with Lil Peep.
Well, I'd love to take Boy George, obviously, George O'Dowd, number one. Then Billy Idol and Ricky Gervais.
Oh, well, first Madonna, definitely. So Ian McKellen, I think he's as camp as tits, and he owns a gay hotel in Britain, and I think he'd be loads of fun. Graham Norton would be loads of fun. I think that would be a pretty good mix.
Oh, I think George Michael, one of my favourite artists, Elton John, and Billy Connolly.
Pink, definitely. Robbie Williams and George Clark. And Pink and Robbie Williams can have a good time, go home, and I'm staying with George.
Probably the fireworks. You know, I don't normally go to the Ekka very much, but the fireworks is probably the best thing.
I love the petting zoo, and I love going through the cooking, the creative parts, even the animals, the dogs, seeing all the dogs and that. And my mum used to be at Kemmel Garden Club, and we used to actually have a display, so we would set the display up and we'd go and visit it and that sort of thing, and then go in after the show and pull it all down. We did that for about 3 or 4 years.
Fireworks shows are always pretty impressive. Also the show bags are pretty cool too. I remember the show bag arenas more than anywhere else. I always enjoyed pulling my dad away to the show bags to always buy me the expensive ones. My grandma and granddad used to work at the strawberry ice cream stand.
Well, I did like the strawberry ice creams. I liked Sideshow Alley, and I also liked the wood chopping.
The ring events. I love the animals. Yeah, I think definitely going to see the cattle, the horses, the grand parade. I really enjoyed that aspect of it, particularly as an adult. As a child, it would have been the Sideshow Alley and the show bags.
Yeah, I used to go every year as a child. It was always great. I was always a big fan of the rides, and like you end your night with a show bag. What could be better?
Well, when we were kids, definitely Sideshow Alley. And the Dagwood dogs. So it's the only place we ever got them.
Growing up on a farm, I always liked the animal displays, the dogs, the cattle, the chooks, the chickens, the fruit, the veggies, all of those.
Back when I was a kid, they weren't show bags, they were sample bags. And so all the people there, they were actually promoting themselves. They were promoting their products by giving you samples. So the sample bags back then were so very different than they are now as show bags. Yeah, brilliant memories of the fireworks at night, the grand parade on the Wednesday People's Day. Yeah, fabulous memories.
Oh, I love the dairy pavilion. I love the the cheese and biscuits. That was something I really liked because I'm a very dairy focused person.
I still really like I like the wood chopping. I don't know if that's just entertaining. I think that's just a bit fun. Great fun to watch the wood chopping, and it's just like they just take it so seriously. Which is the funny bit. It's because they take it so seriously. It's
so dangerous.
But yeah, it is. Yeah, because you think they're just about to, especially the ones not the the ones that are actually just doing not the sawing and everything, but just the actual chopping with the. They're actually they stand on it and they really get into it, and it's like they're really trying to beat the other guy. So yeah, that's the fact that that's an event at all, it's funny, but then to watch it is really quite that's pretty fun.
Well, I guess for us as children, it was a really exciting time. You were able to just go along with your friends, your childhood friends, to the exhibition. There was a certain amount of freedom there.
I remember as a family we nominated the Ferris wheel as our location if we got lost. So if we got separated, we all were to meet at the Ferris wheel. I think that happened nearly every year we went.
Walking around and seeing all the animals and seeing the excitement on all the kids' faces, eating strawberry ice creams and all the general buzz about everything there. It was really nice. I enjoyed seeing the animals because some of them were in labour and having babies, so all that sort of thing. The wood chopping was good, and the fireworks was a bonus at the end.
guess when me and my friends all got our licenses, we'd all drive up to the top of the summit and hang out late at night, you know, being all young and in our teenage years and starting to be a little bit free. So yeah, just spontaneous drives to the summit.
When I was younger, I was walking around the botanical gardens with my grandparents and a duck made me fall into the pond. My grandma had to come and save me.
Had lunch at the Summit Lookout and done UFO watches from the Summit Lookout. That's quite relaxing, that's good. Had picnics at JC Slaughter Falls on a few occasions. That's good. And it's just a nice drive up around Mount Coot-tha.
I went through a phase where I used to just love going and walking through the botanical gardens, and particularly going to see all the new, you know, it's constantly evolved there, and I loved going to see the new precinct. I'd love to go back actually and see it now, because it would be a lot more sort of settled. But I enjoy just putting a podcast, you know, listening to a podcast and walking around the gardens. Yeah, I just love it.
I feel like I never actually planned to go to the Lookout, but it just seems to be something at nighttime. If nothing else is open, you just go like, why don't we go to Mount Coot-tha? And so you just end up not even going outside because it might be too cold, but just parking somewhere and just jamming out to music and just having a chat.
But it was a place where if you had nothing to do on a Friday afternoon, Saturday afternoon, whatever, we could go up to the mountain. It would just be a place to grab a coffee, go to the Lookout. Yeah, it was just a place that you could hang out.
A bit of a different take on it. It was following the floods in 2011. The botanical gardens at Mount Coot-tha were one of the points where people would come who were volunteering for the Mud Army, and I went along that weekend to volunteer for the clean-up. So as an assembly point, the gardens were one of the assembly points, and just walking in there that first morning, and literally thousands of people lining up to volunteer their services, going in and, you know, being bussed out to the various places that they'll need. It was just a remarkable, you know, event.
Do you have any fond memories of visiting the planetarium as a school kid?
Yeah, all the time. Well, a lot of them. So we used to go, I think it was once a year, occasionally we go see them, but what really stuck by me was the Mars rover exhibit / video that they'd show about how just all of the engineering technology behind what went into landing on the surface of Mars.
You think that's what led you to your current career?
It definitely piqued an interest.
Oh, without going into too much detail, just probably parking up my car with my current girlfriend. Just some random car park somewhere. We won't go into detail.
So I'm not actually a big music or concert person, but I started with a new events management business, and my first gig was working the One Direction concert at Suncorp Stadium. So I had a little stall out front, and then once everyone had gone inside, ready for the show, they said, go, be free, find a seat and watch the show, and be back 10 minutes before it ended. So I guess technically it's One Direction, and I got paid to watch the whole thing. So that's pretty good.
A Cher concert out at the Entertainment Centre, which was really interesting because Margaret Ehrlich was a New Zealand girl and she was a support act, and she sung her heart out and it was great. And you know, by about 10 minutes in, I'd lost interest in Cher.
Okay, the best concert has to be Sir Elton John, and that was at Lane Park, now named Suncorp Stadium.
well, that would be Culture Club, Festival Hall. Loved it. Loved the drama of it. Loved everything about Lloyd George.
That was also my answer.
Really?
Yeah. Because it was amazing.
It was
a real showmanship.
Event, yes.
Look, there's a number that come to mind. Outdoor concerts, stadium concerts are very different to the Brisbane Entertainment Centre, Festival Hall, etc. Outdoor concerts, the stadium concerts, for me it was Madonna. That was, being a big Madonna fan, that was very nostalgic. You know, that was a big thing for me, and I look back very fondly of that event. Indoor concerts, there'd be a few. Prince was just an amazing event. The Eurythmics I saw every time they came, probably 5 times they came to Brisbane. That was just raw. Or just the simplicity of their show was just fantastic. Belinda Carlisle, I did the hair for her for that night, for that concert. That was quite special, and the same with the B-52s, looking after the hair.
Wow, that would have been an interesting wigs, or were they wigs that you had to style?
Pieces, hair pieces, yeah. But that hair was pretty close to God, yeah.
Nothing really gets better than your first one, because it's always that first memory, but that was Ed Sheeran at River Stage, right before he got too popular, so there wasn't as many people.
Oh, that has to be the Kiss concert when I was in school. I was grade 9, and it was at Lang Park.
AC/DC and Festival Hall. So that's at Festival Hall. I saw a couple of people there, and the most amazing place to see artists.
Oh yes, I remember that one too, because we definitely weren't expecting it and we didn't think Brisbane would be hit with anything like that. And I can remember where I lived, I was at Norman Park, and luckily where I was on a slope going up where our apartments were, but opposite was a great big park. And I can remember within a couple of days, that whole park was just a lake with a boat running around, a couple of boats actually. And all I could see was just the roofs of the houses opposite. And I'm thinking those poor people. And we had to put our cars up on the streets and we had to climb over fences behind it to get up to our cars. And no, that was definitely something we weren't expecting.
I was very, very young, but I do have distinct memories. I remember walking up from Uri Street, which is just off Marshall Lane, up to the flyover that you look across Jindalee and seeing the barge being blown up with my dad. So it was a pretty distinct memory in my mind, the whole walk there, seeing water as far as the eye can see. I'll never ever forget that memory. Do you remember the lady next door's sister had a baby and she lived down by Kenmore High? And I remember going over as a young kid and helping her with the baby and cleaning up her house. So the whole, and it was reflected the same with 2011. The whole community drew together and the people that weren't affected helped the people that were affected. So it was nice to see that the whole community spirit.
Capital Brisbane preparing for a repeat of 1974.
Today is very significant. Tomorrow is bad, and Thursday is going to be devastating for the residents and the businesses concerned.
9 people were killed overnight. Nearly 60 are missing in the worst hit area of the Lockyer Valley to the west of Brisbane. The southeast Queensland farming district was hit by a wall of water as the Lockyer Creek rose in a matter of minutes, roaring through the town of Grantham. Homes were ripped from their stumps, cars swept from streets. More people were killed in floodwaters at Murphy's Creek, just to the north. Black Hawk helicopters this afternoon evacuated 300 people living at Forest Hill near Laidley. 2 lives were lost in the inland city of Toowoomba. Already the suburbs of Fortitude Valley, Albion, West End and Milton are going under. People in other low-lying areas have been told to leave before they're forced out. Premier Anna Bligh was shaken last night as she revealed the extent of the crisis. Today, she described it as a true test of Queenslanders. She's called in help from interstate, but appealed for residents to hang in there. Ipswich is also about to be hit hard. Mayor Paul Pizzali says 16 suburbs will be flooded with thousands of residents affected. The Bremer River is expected to reach 22 metres tomorrow and may go higher. The ABC's Paul Lockyer is the only reporter who's been able to get into the town, and he filed this report.
The images are stark. This is a battered remnants of a small Queensland town destroyed in...
So we lived on an island for about 5 days or so. So we were fully surrounded by water. We had rescue boats pull up to our deck. My brother even tried fishing off of our deck. We were on our own little island with the water right up to where we lived. Both of our cars got lost to the floods. All of our gas bottles, because our house runs on gas, that's cooking. All of them floated around and floated away a little bit. We watched houses go down the river and huge torrents of water. And then once all the water finally went away, I remember walking on the golf course with all of the huge upturned trees that used to be there, like huge gum trees and things, where the actual trunk was larger than me, and it was very surreal walking through a wasteland where everything was covered in like a thin film, not quite soot, but just like sediment left over from the river. And it was very surreal walking on a path that we used to walk every day with our dog, but now it looked like after a nuclear fallout. It was very wild.
Yes, I wasn't able to go home for a couple of days. I had to stay with my grandma. The worst part was my grandma didn't have internet. That was my suffering.
The only real thing I remember was just being hungry all the time because we couldn't get access to food.
Where I lived, we were pretty much, it was not too far away. The Logan River got very, very big, and the park down the road ended up being 90% water. But actually where I lived, we weren't cut off. We didn't have any major dramas from it.
Yes, I remember distinctly Moggle Road at Chapel Hill. The water came up from the river, and it also came down from the heights of Chapel Hill down on, and it all sort of met around the Shell service station, and it came across the road there. I certainly was cut off, and I just remember the incredible community spirit that sort of transpired, and we see that in any of these natural disasters where people come together to help.
The flooding, I lived in the Gold Coast when the flooding of 2011 was, and I lived on the water at Oxenford. I think we were cut off a little bit on the Mount Tambourine Road, but ourselves, the flood didn't reach our house, but there was a horse stuck on our jetty, which we looked over the lake, so we had to go down steps to the jetty, and somebody was knocking on our door at about 6 in the morning to say there was a horse caught on the wires. So there was people down there already, and they were helping the horse to come on our lower landing of the garden. They managed to float the horse to that landing, but when the water went down, they didn't realise that the steps right down to the water, and they tried to back the horse out, and it fell in between the steps and the wall and broke its leg, and we had to have the vet in to put it down, which was an awful thing because we had all the family of who owned it, and they were all so upset. It was a very bad time. Yes, yeah, we had all the the newspaper and the media there, and and all the street, and we had a swimming pool, and the gate was open, and they all walked along, and they didn't realise that the pool was full, and they all kept dropping into the pool as they walked along.
Oh my gosh! So all their equipment went in the pool.
The street the whole street come to have a look on the top there, because they could see it all, and they had to pass the pool, but they didn't realise it was there because it was overflowing, and down they went.
Like lemmings off a cliff.
In floods or emergencies or tragedy, the good people always come out. There's a lot of good in people. We tend to focus on bad people, negative people, but really there's more positive people and they all come out and help. It was just wonderful how everybody came out to help each other.
We had a generator, so you just needed an extension cord and you could, you know, plug in the TV or just something to watch a movie. Yeah, charge your laptop, charge your, well, I don't think I had a phone at the time, but yeah, definitely charge a computer or something. So that was, I think, just a lot of board games, even though you were very bored.
So it's kind of like a mini COVID?
Yes, exactly. But I definitely heard about the helicopters, like dropping off food, because yeah, Bellbarry. But that was about all I heard. I was quite removed from the news. I was just in my own world.
Okay, so no, the location where I was living at the time, we weren't cut off, so I still went to work every day.
Yes, I was stranded for 3 days, all by myself with my 2 cats. But in honesty, it was for me it was a wonderful three days. I had a full I had a full fridge. I had a full beer fridge. The family were cut off on the other side of the river. Absolutely brilliant.
But you still miss them?
Oh yes, absolutely.
I remember so it wasn't as bad as for other people, because I remember afterwards with the cleanup, cleaning up people's houses, and there was one time when I was cleaning up at Bellbarry on down the bottom of the hill there, and we were just shoving stuff into the back of the truck, and it's obviously people's belongings, and there's photos and all sorts of stuff, and it's just like, and it's just all of these people's memories and what have you, and just getting shoved in. And right then, I pulled up was the family who lived in the house, and they just returned from New Zealand. So you just saw firsthand the expression on their faces as the horror of seeing all of their stuff just piled up at the front, and these people, these complete strangers, just chucking their stuff into the back of the truck.
Particularly in the clean-up, as I mentioned earlier, going out on that first weekend after the waters had receded with the mud army, and just to see the absolutely thousands and thousands of people either in the, cleaning up those who'd been affected, the people who were there providing, sandwiches and drinks for the residents or the clean-up crew, the way that the whole town, the city came together post that event was absolutely remarkable.
I believe you even received a certificate from the Lord Mayor at the time.
Oh yes, along with all the other participants, yes.
I think the media covered it really, really well. That was the cleanup crew, so the Mud Army. But there were so many different organisations that got together and, took up donations for people who were cut off. There were food drops done by helicopter, there were rescues done by the helicopters. I think a lot of the community just got together and really helped each other out in that sort of time.
I know I got cut off from my house, so I had to stay at my grandmother's house instead, but I don't think we were cut off from food or any other services, so I think we were pretty well off.
No, I didn't personally, because I'm on a hill, so we're pretty safe where we were. But there was a lot of places you couldn't get to, and a lot of our friends' places that were cut off.
There was the SCS who helped everyone with sandbags around their homes, but that didn't personally affect me.
Events like that bring out the best and the worst in people, so.
We did get cut off personally, however, we still had our neighbours around us, our house was safe, and essentially the only sort of impression I got was that it was a very sort of eerie type silence, but I think people did come together a lot during the flood, and for that reason, And because we were particularly safe, it didn't impact my life in a great way.
Yeah, 2011 floods was different. We were cut off, but we had power. It was very surreal because it really didn't affect us, and we almost got like survivor guilt when we're allowed to get through, and we couldn't get through to Kenmore, but we could get through to Balbarry. So as soon as we could get through, we did, and helped as many people as we could clean up.
Yes, we did get cut off. Fortunate for us, we still had power, so nothing really changed for us. It was just the local people that, because Balbarry's just down the road about 15 minutes away. My kids really didn't realise what was going on. We could see it on TV, but afterwards with the clean-up, everybody just came out and went down there to help people, and they just went from door to door asking people if they wanted help. It was good to see so many people helping those which have just had so much misfortune.
Probably the valley. Going to the valley was sort of a turning point where I changed from a child into an adult. It really was a rite of passage for me, just to see like city life, which I hadn't seen before.
Well, of course, South Bank is one of our highlights, but not just that. We have a great art gallery, culture centre, museum.
Probably some of those early nightclubs. Yeah, I think they had a pretty big impact on my life and the social scene. And some of those lovely memories and the people. It's all about the people, and a lot of those people aren't here anymore. So it's nice to have those memories.
I guess the places we've had the most family celebrations, so New Farm Park, yes. South Bank, yes. The places that bring up the family memories for me.
Mount Coot-tha will still be there. I have memories of Mount Coot-tha. It's a nice place, there's bush walks, it's a nice drive. South Bank Parklands, when I arrived, Expo was just about to begin. So for 6 months I spent a lot of time at Expo.
Well, I guess you always go back to your teenage years. So for me, it would be about the clubbing and the fun that we had as kids and as teenagers, and just growing up, asserting your independence, and just those wonderful friendships that you had as a teenager.
As a general thing, probably the river. So not no one particular place, but the things that attach and are by the river, because I spent so much time growing up either in the river or in places beside it, in the parklands and those areas that are beside the river. So probably just the Brisbane River itself.